So what if I told you that you have the potential to conjure up magnificent dragons? Interested? Stick around. My name is Van der Poegert and you're listening to Finding Frequency, one man's quest to find the extraordinary in the ordinary, one day at a time. So extraordinary dragons. Before we get into extraordinary dragons, I just wanted to tell you about my little boy. Yes, they are in Krynica, a little area in the south of Poland, where they're enjoying and frolicking in the snow. Now, one thing that I'm feeling slightly guilty about today is the fact that I received a photo of my little boy on his skis for the first time. And I feel a little bit guilty that I've missed that moment. Luckily, my wife insisted that we have to go back. So, as a small nucleus family, because I really love spending time with a smaller group of people, we will return to Krynica soon so that Daddy can see the site in person. So, I'm looking forward to taking you there. So, hang on tight, we're going to Krynica soon. But now, dragons. So the reason I want to talk about dragons is because I actually made a little bit of a breakthrough today. So yesterday I spoke about taking those first steps. So I nudged forward today and actually started looking at some ideas and concepts that I want to include in the book that I'm working with my friend. Now the book, I don't want to go too much into detail, not because it's a secret, but because we're still figuring it out. We'll be touching on podcasting. And one of the key insights I actually came to today is that, yes, it will be about podcasting and the topic will be covering podcasting, but one of the biggest things that podcasts give people access to is the power and the ability to harness audio. It's all about audio. And when I started thinking about audio, it took me back today to when I was younger. And I used to listen to radio with my mom. It's one of my fondest memories. I remember us sitting around, and I think my mom was doing ironing or just, she's always busy doing stuff. But we spent time together listening to radio shows. If I remember correctly, the radio station back then in South Africa was called Springbok Radio. And they really tapped into the idea of the theater of the mind and the power of how the mind can conjure up imagery. And specifically around 4 o'clock each day, and I think it was 4 o'clock, they used to have like an hour of kids programming. And I remember, perhaps if I listened to it today, I would not be so excited about it. But I really remember the essence of those little programs taking me on journeys away from where I was, on adventures. Anyway, sorry, I had a bit of a moment there. So now I'm going to attempt to take you from that story of audio towards dragons. Well, in fact, 3 years ago when I met Mark Odeski. Now, Mark Odeski is the producer of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, I met him at a very interesting event where we were talking about experience design. And when you talk about experience design, you don't necessarily have to attach it to any specific medium. It's about experiences. And in fact, I realized today that audio is also a medium for creating experiences. Now, what does that mean? When we met Mark, he introduced us to the idea of the dragon's eye. So what did Mark mean by the dragon's eye? So first of all, there's a very, very practical limitation to what he was talking about. For example, they only had a certain amount of budget and also a certain amount of time to complete the movies. That meant that they had to turn around a lot of big things very fast. And in some instances, they brought in a secret weapon, a secret tool, a secret way to create a magnificent world relying on imagination. Not their imagination, but your imagination. A secret weapon far more powerful than any of the tools or special effects that they had at their disposal. So the only thing they had to do was to trigger that imagination at the right point of time. Imagine being swooped away into a dark cave, ominous music playing, and then the only thing you see is a glimpse of a giant yellow eye. And as Mark pointed out, that dragon that you have just created in your mind's eye is far more superior than anything that they could create. And that's the point I'm making, is that you can, like Mark did, create magnificent dragons because your listener, your viewer, your reader will conjure up that dragon for you. And that brought me to the realization that this medium I'm using, this medium you're listening to, is far more powerful than I even realized. Just imagine the world that I can conjure up. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not really here to encourage you to create a podcast. What I am encouraging you to do is to create, but also create in such a way that you allow your audience to create with you. Because when you start creating together, the potential is limitless.